Hi everyone, Emily here, and today I have for you my June reading wrap up. Before I get into that, just a few housekeeping things. One, if you're in Canada, happy Canada Day. I hope that you are able to enjoy your holiday. Two, I'm hoping that the lighting is better than it was in my last video. So I'm currently in my office / spare bedroom, and it has a skylight, so that's why I kind of have like a halo. But it was a dreary, kind of gloomy, rainy day here, and lighting is just really hard for me in my apartment. Third, we have kind of a break in the weather as far as heat goes, so I turned my air conditioning off, and in my bedroom, I have the windows open, and I live right across, right by the busiest road in town, so you might hear some traffic, so I apologize for that. And that being said, I did want to get my wrap up filmed because I have a book that needs to be returned to the library. So without further ado, let's get started. So in June, I don't have the stats on how many pages I've read. I need to enter that in. I haven't entered in all my books into my Excel spreadsheet yet. But I did read 11 books. 4 of them were novellas, to be fair. And then I read some other books that I'm not going to talk about on this channel because I don't feel like it. But they're just fluff books. But let's dive right in. So the first book I read is The Duchess by Jude Deveraux. And this is an older book. It's a romance book, your typical historical romance. And this story follows Claire, and she is an American heiress, and she needs to marry someone who has an appearance of being, whom her parents approve of. So her parents have all inherited this money, and they just spend their money willy-nilly. So she needs to marry someone that her parents approve of, so that way she can come into her inheritance and make sure that her parents and her younger sister are provided for. So they travel over to England where she meets, I don't remember his name right now, and that's terrible, but she meets a man who is a Scottish lord. And so her parents approve of him, and so they become engaged. And she travels to his home. She and her family travel to his home in Scotland to start planning the wedding and for her to meet the family. And while there, she meets this mysterious man who is living like in some secret rooms in this castle, and his name is Trevelyan. And so she meets this man Trevelyan who has a lot of secrets surrounding him. And that's pretty much the whole premise of this story. I use this as a prompt for one of my readathons. I use it as like a shiny cover because, well, it's kind of dull now, but when it was brand new, it was probably really shiny. I've read this before, like numerous times. Like I think I read this in high school, college, and I've enjoyed it. Trevelyan, for now more modern authors, Trevelyan does come off as a sexist jerk. Not gonna lie. But he does have his moments, so keep that in mind. So that was The Duchess, and I would say that would be about 3.5 stars, 4 stars. The next book I've read is Malice by John Gwynne, and this is the first book in The Faithful and the Fallen. And I read this along with some other people on Sarah Reed's Discord, and I think I would give it 3.5 stars, probably 3.5 stars, mainly because the last 40 pages were just awesome. And this story follows several different factions in the Banished Lands. I believe that's his world that he's created. And there's so many different characters, and there's of course a prophecy, and within that prophecy there's going to be the Black Sun and the Bright Star. Of course, the Black Sun is going to be our evil character, of course. Our Bright Star is going to be our good character. And there is supposed to be this cataclysmic event where the bright sun will be, or the bright star will be revealed, and the black sun will be revealed. And who are going to be those people? We don't know. And there, of course, are several different characters that can fit that bill of who those characters will be. This is a military fantasy, so if you like that trope, you'll like this. It's also very much an epic fantasy. What I did not like about it is that there's just a slew of characters, so many different characters, and so many different parts of the land, and so many different factions, and so many different point of views, where you're like, okay, who is this person, and who are they connected to? Where do they live? What are their loyalties? I couldn't remember. So I think this would have been best served to have like a cast of characters at the front of the book to help you kind of keep track of things. Even if they couldn't put down what they were all about, just put down like, this is your list of characters, this is where they're from. In addition, John Gwynne would be like, okay, this person came off the ship and he had blue eyes, and like, dun dun dun, like something big is gonna happen with this person, and you're just kind of like, who the hell had blue eyes? Like, I can't even remember who had blue eyes. Or this person had the person who did this had curly hair. Like, who the hell had curly hair? I don't remember, because your brain is trying so hard to figure out who's connected with who and where they belong to and what is their name. So, and then you throw in like those small, minute character details that you're trying to keep track of too. It was just too much to keep track of. So that part I didn't care for. It does have, though, a cast of characters that I did enjoy. Like, I love Gar. Like, give me some more Gar any day. Also, I enjoyed Corbin. I really liked him. And his animal companion, Storm, and I can't remember, Shield. So Storm is life. Storm is up there with Night Eyes for me by Robin Hobb. So that is high praise indeed for an animal companion for me. This book was very slow moving, and again, it's epic, it's quest, so it's going to be slower moving. But I was expecting more of a faster pace, hearing from people how they binge read the series so quickly. So I was expecting for something to be faster, and I wasn't getting that. The last 40 pages were amazing, and that is why this book, I would say 3.5 star over 3 star, because the last 40 pages were the pace that I was expecting to be. We get high action, high battles. It was awesome. I'm looking forward to reading Valor, actually now in July. I need to read KK first, and then I'll read Valor. And I hear that the subsequent books will be the higher pace that I was expecting this to be. So, now that's John Gwynne. And then I read Emily of New Moon by Ella Montgomery. So, Ella Montgomery is most famously known for her Anne of Green Gables series. This is her lesser known, and it's a trilogy, and it follows Emily Starr. And at the start of this book, her father, she's 11, and her father passes away from tuberculosis, leaving her an orphan, as her mother passed away when she was like 4. So her mother is part of a family who lives at New Moon, and I cannot remember their last name for the life of me. But her mother was part of this wealthy, very well-to-do, connected family. And when she married a school teacher, they kind of wrote her off and disowned her. But there's no one now to take care of Emily, so all of her relatives on her mother's side get together, draw lots to see who's going to raise her. And that falls to 2 aunts who are older and spinsters, and then her cousin Jimmy. So Aunt Elizabeth is kind of more the stern disciplinarian. Aunt Laura is more sympathetic towards Emily. And Cousin Jimmy, they don't name it in this book because this was written in the early 1900s. He has traumatic brain injury. So when he was a child, he fell down a well and suffered a brain injury. But they don't use that terminology, but it's clear that that's what he has. But he's just a very sweet person. So there's just a very wide variety cast of characters as she deals with moving to a new place, to live with relatives that she's never met and who has had no interest in her and her family, dealing with the grief of losing her father, having to live with someone who's a very stern disciplinarian, and just growing up and coming of age. It's a beautifully written novel. She makes friends with a boy named Teddy. She makes friends with a girl named Ilsa, who has never gone to school before, really. Her father is kind of neglectful of her. It's a very kind of a sad story, but there are events that make things better. It was beautifully written. Now, I will say this, and I would give this, growing up, I would have given this 4.5 stars. As an adult reading it, and reading it in the age that we live in, I would give this maybe a 3.5, 4 star. And that's because there is a relationship that, looking at it with modern eyes, is kind of problematic. So I'm going to start talking about that. If you want no spoilers at all, then I don't recommend listening to this. I'll try to keep it spoiler free. But when I'm done with this conversation, I'll kind of wave my hand. So if you want to mute me, you can. But I do think it's important to point out this relationship, as this is a middle grade young adult novel. And so if you have children who want to read this, it's important to know what this relationship is, to have a discussion about it. So Emily, at one point in the novel, she goes off to live with, or to spend the summer with one of her relatives. And there she meets her cousin Dean, or one of her relatives. So cousin Dean is in his 30s. So she's 12 and he's 34, 35. And they become friends. That, our modern sensibilities, it's like, whoa, craziness. That's concerning. In addition, there are some lines that he says that show that, like, he has some, like, he's very kind of jealous of her friendships. He's fascinated, like, he thinks that she's beautiful. And basically it's kind of like, one day you're going to be mine, okay? We need to understand something about Dean. He had an accident, I think, and he, now his spine is curved and he's got a hunchback, so he has been kind of an outcast, and has kind of a recluse and very kind of sullen. And so the fact that she befriends him is something very important to him. Not saying that what he says is kind of creepy. It does come off, now reading it as an adult and in modern eyes. And as a teacher, I'd be like, ooh, stay away. And I probably would be reporting it as a very concerning relationship. I don't think that was Ella Montgomery's intention at all with this relationship. And I do think those lines are kind of setting things up for what's to come later in this trilogy. So please keep that in mind. And remember, like, even back then it was still kind of odd, but people did marry people who were older. Like, he's 20 years older, 22 years older. Like, that did still happen, okay? It is a little odd. It is odd for a man his age, though, to express interest in someone as young as she is. But at the start of this book, in this book, it very is much a platonic friendship. Please understand that. Again, it doesn't, but it just does not, some of the lines that are written in this book just don't translate well. So I wanted to give that warning. in case you make that decision to read that with, and you have children and you think, oh man, yeah, I want to read, like, I grew up with Anne of Green Gables, forgot about that book, I want my kids to read that. I want you to be prepared for that. You might want to read this before deciding if you want children to read it. Okay? All right, I'm done with the talk of that relationship. Again, I'd probably give this a 3.5 star. It is a beautifully written novel, same vein as Anne of Green Gables, although I would give Anne of Green Gables a higher rating. And then I read The Wisteria Society, Lady of Scoundrels by India Holton. And I will be honest and say that this book was a cover buy for me. The cover I just think is so beautiful. And I would give this book a 3 star. Simply because I really struggled with just kind of like, do I like this book? I don't know. Like, as I kept reading, I'm like, I don't understand this book. It was just different. So, basically, Cecilia Bassingthwaighte, she's a Victorian lady, and she's like the ideal lady. She's a pirate. And she steals things. And this is a world where, like, houses fly, and they're pirate ships, and, like, they fly using, like, incantations and magic. And so, like, throughout the book, they're constantly, like, just stealing things, and it's just kind of accepted as that's what you do. And Ned Lightbourne, he is an assassin, and he's been hired by a couple of people to try to kill Cecilia Bassingthwaighte. In the meantime, Cecilia's main mission in life is try to get into the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. Like, that you have to do all these different things to prove that you are a pirate worthy of joining this society. Again, oh, and it's also a romance. I need to throw that in there. There is romance in this. Again, it was just like, I don't know what we're trying to do here. Like, it was trying to be very quirky and funny, and I don't really do well with quirk humor. Like, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fell flat for me. I know people are gasping right now. Like, I know, I'm sorry. Like, when I went Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy years ago, I was like, this is supposed to be funny. It's not. So, like, quirky humor just does not translate well for me. And I think that's why this did not work out too well for me, which is a real shame because I wanted to like it. The cover is just so beautiful. The premise was different. It just fell flat for me. And then I read a 5-star read. And that is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Holy cow, is this so good. So let me go into what it's about. So this is set in pre-Columbian times in the land of Tova. And it draws, excuse me, I have an itchy nose. It draws a lot of, like, the system behind, like, the magic and the society is kind of like Aztec roots. Which I just found fascinating because I love learning about Native American people, and I loved growing up going to the Field Museum in Chicago and visiting the Egyptology and the Native American exhibits there. I just love that. So it's set in Tova, and it follows 4 main point of views. So first, I'm not going to pronounce her name correctly, so I'm just not even going to bother. It follows a teak sea captain, and she is charged with taking a passenger on her ship to Tova before the convergence occurs. And then we follow that passenger's point of view and his story. And then we also follow the character who is the Sun Priest, and who is, she's part of 4 different priests that kind of rule in Tova. And then we follow the son of the Carrion Crow leader, who is part of, like, one of the different tribes in the city of Tova. And so we get all of their point of views, and there's going to be a big event that happens at the convergence during the solar eclipse. So, the first chapter starts off with a bang. Like, Rebecca Roanhorse knows how to write a hook and how to get you involved in a story where you're like, what? Like, it was mind-blowing, and I was like, tell me more. Like, I now need to know what is going on. Like, this is mind-blowing, what is going on. And each chapter just kind of leaves you with, okay, I need to know more, I need to know more, I need to know more. And again, the last like 40, 50 pages was just like, what? Like, there are multiple times where I shouted out, literally, holy beep, like, what? It was mind-blowing. So that's why I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Character development, it was there, but it was very much a plot-driven, more so than character development. We do have character development, keep that in mind, but it was very much more plot-driven than character development. I was on the edge of my seat. I needed to know more. I immediately ran out to the bookstore and bought Fevered Star, which I don't usually run out to a bookstore right away and buy the sequels, and I did, because I was like, I have to have it. Even if I don't read it right away, I have to have it in my hands, and I have to know what's going to happen in this book. So, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. If you like learning about Native American cultures, if you like diversity in your reading, read this book. And then I read The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince by Robin Hobb. This is one of the novellas that I read. I would give this like a 3.5 star. It was okay. This is a prequel to The Realm of the Elderlings. It's not written before she wrote all The Realm of the Elderlings, but it does give the backstory more on how the wits came to be and why people don't like the wit and people who are witted in the Six Duchies. And it gives us more background on the Farseer lineage to the crown. So that's why I thought it was interesting. There is something that happened at the very end of the book that I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is going to play out and pan out more in other books. So I'm curious to see if that happens. So Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. And then I read Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And this is also one of the novellas that I read. And Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she wrote my favorite short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, which if you've never read that, please read it. It is phenomenal. So Herland is very much a feminist read. It follows 3 men who travel to find this utopia society they hear about as they're explorers, and they hear about this from some natives in the land that they travel, that there is this land that is all women, and it's a civilized society, and they cannot believe that there could possibly be a civilized society where there are no men. There has to be men in order for there to be a civilized society. So they travel and they find Herland, and it is a civilized society made up of only women. And it's very much a feminist book. It was written way back. Gosh, when was it written? I don't know. The copyright on this is 1979, but Gilman was not alive in 1979. She was born in 1860, so keep that in mind. I think this was written in the early 1900s. You have, like, the 3 male characters were pretty much stock characters. So, like, you have one who is, like, all in, like, Herland is great, it's wonderful. Then you have one who is kind of like, no, you need to have men in the society to function. Men can only help you, like your stock male chauvinist. And then you have one who's kind of like, hey, there are benefits to this world, and kind of trying to explain to the women, like, here's how our world functions and why our world is good. And then they kind of go, well, here's what, that doesn't make sense. Here's what we've done and how our world is so much better. And he goes back and forth between how his is like how regular society is, for lack of a better word, and how Herland society is better. He goes back and forth. I'm glad I read it. I mean, it's a classic in feminist literature, so for that I'm glad I read it. But it was very much, it's a product of its times, and I liked more nuanced writing. Like, I don't typically like utopia works because I don't believe that a utopia can exist right here on Earth right now. So that's why I was just kind of like, there's Herland. And then I read some ebooks on my Kindle. I don't know how to flash them up. Sorry, I don't know how to create those graphics. I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which I would give a 4.5 star. I loved it. I can't remember the main characters, Charlie and Nora. And Charlie is an editor, and Nora is a book agent. And they have met professionally, and then 2 years later they meet up in Sunshine Falls. Nora is there on a vacation with her sister, who is pregnant and is just kind of feeling, Nora's afraid that her sister's feeling dissatisfied with her life, and how can I help her financially, and how can I help take care of her and her husband and her family. Charlie is there for other reasons. We will find that out in the book. I don't want to give too much away because of spoilers. And it was a very, very cute book. What I loved about Charlie is he was a character who, very successful character in his own right at his job as a book editor, and also really encouraged Nora and to fulfill her dreams, and really helped and worked with her to fully realize her dreams. It was beautiful, it was funny, so sarcastic and so funny. I loved it. And all I have to say, the name on the spa, when you hear the original name of Spa, I died laughing. It was so funny. All right, then I read 2 novellas by Ali Hazelwood. One was Under One Roof, and the other was Stuck With You. Under One Roof, I would give like a 3 star, 3.5, 3 star. We'll say 3.5. Stuck With You, Stuck With You, I'd give maybe like a 2.5. Only because Under One Roof is an enemies to lovers trope, which I appreciate much more than insta-love. I hate insta-love. Like, it's not a trope that works well with me. So that's why I would give it such a low rating. But it does follow her, like, Women in STEM series, so that was cute. I appreciated that. I did enjoy them. And then finally, I read City of Dragons by Robin Hobb, which is book 3 in the Rainwild Chronicles. And what I enjoyed about this book is now we get to see the Duke of Chelsea, which is part of the realm. But we hear about them. We get, there are characters who are former slaves from Chelsea who are now free, and they live in Bingtown, and they live in the Rainwilds. But that's all that we know about Chelsea, is these slaves. We finally, in this book, get the Duke of Chelsea's perspective. So that was interesting to see that, because we have never delved into that realm. So I enjoyed that. This book for sure is more YA in tone, I guess. I mean, just people hooking up. It's not, I wouldn't say it's YA, but it's very much like angsty romance, and you're just kind of like, eh. I did get that note a little bit more so in this book than in the first two books. I'm trying to talk about this book without being spoilery. There were some very satisfying moments in this book when it came to Hest. I was like, yes! It was so satisfying, the things that happened to Hest. That is all I have to say about that. And so for that, I'm giving this book a 4.5, like 4.5 stars. I'm not going to give it a 5. Well, no, I'm going to give it a 4-star. Because the other Rain books I would give a 4.5, and I like this less than the other two books. So 4. But I need to talk about Carson and one of the things that he says. So Carson is a hunter, and I love Carson. I love Carson. And so he's giving romance advice to someone, and this is what he says, and I just love it. He says, what you're looking for is a feeling that no matter what, being with that person is always going to be better than being without that person, good times or bad. That having that person around makes whatever you're going through better, or at least more tolerable. Oh, Carson. So I finished this up last night. That is the last of the books that I've read. I'm sorry that this vlog is a whole lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I apologize for that. So thank you for sticking around and watching this. What did you read in June? What were your favorite reads of June? What are you looking forward to July? Have you read any of the books that I've read? Do you want to read any of the books that you read? Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe and comment down below. Have a wonderful rest of your